Can't download his food.
Yet. Kuf Beis Amud Aleph, 102a.
Food for the soul, yes.
Chicken soup
Okay.
for the soul?
The line begins with the word Yerushalayim, and then the second word is Amar Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa. Or actually, we'll back up a second. The line before, B'Shem Nechleka Machas Beis David, and then there's Yeroboam Yotza Yerushalayim. There's a little hay. So if you look at the last word in the line, it's Yotza. The word before that is Yeroboam.
How far down?
If you go to like the narrow set of lines, counting up on top of the wide lines, maybe it's about 10 lines or so. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
10, exactly 10.
Yeah.
Last two words are Yeroboam Yotza. Okay, so the verses, we took a little break on to talk about this idea of opportune times and opportune locations, given the verse states that it was at that time when Yeroboam left Yerushalayim to go to get crowned as king, or to start to scheme to become king, to break away in Shem, and he meets Achia Shiloni, the prophet, on the way. And we described how he convinced Achia Shiloni to join him, because Achia Shiloni didn't think that a person like Yeroboam, with all of his Torah knowledge, will soon learn, is capable of straying, and he thought, on the contrary, this is the hope. But that was the mistake, as we described in previous classes. So now the Gemara is going to analyze this verse, which describes Yeroboam leaving Yerushalayim and meets Achia Shiloni on the way. So the first is Yeroboam Yotza Yerushalayim, and Yeroboam goes out of Jerusalem. So the literal meaning is he walked out of Jerusalem and went on the way. But the Gemara expands the interpretation. It says, Amar Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa. Rabbi Chanina Bar Papa says, Sheyotza, I'm not sure I pronounce the next word, but Pitka Shal Yerushalayim. I'm not sure I pronounce the word exactly. Yeah, Pitka. Which means like the destiny. Or like, so Rashi kind of says destiny, literally, Piska using the comes from the term petek, is like a note, as if like a note fell from heaven saying this is what has to be. It's a destiny. So saying Yotzim, someone who goes out of the destiny of Jerusalem, means he leaves to never return, but more than just leaves to never return geographically, but leaves spiritually, in terms of what Yerushalayim represents. He left that. Which is interesting, because you have indication, for example, that Yerushalayim is only meant for tzaddikim. Also the name Yerushalayim comes from two words, Yira Shalem, complete or whole awe. Yira actually means two translations which are connected. Complete vision, and also Shalem, the word Shalem means complete. Yira means either vision or awe, fear. And they're interconnected. A person who has clear vision of Hashem's truth has greater awe and fear for Hashem's truth. And that's what Yerushalayim represents in the spiritual sense. And leaving Yerushalayim doesn't just mean left geographically, but left that space. And this becomes the foundation for what we're about to read. And they left the awe of heaven. He left that way of thinking. So, parenthetically, to share this episode that happened to me when it became crystallized for me what this means. I was a shliach in Australia, which means I was after I finished yeshiva. It's pretty standard in Chabad system. After you finish the formal yeshiva, before you go to like post yeshiva studies, you take a year of shlichus, which means you go to a younger yeshiva and you become like a mentor, guide, and they have like older boys already more experienced in learning and whatnot to mentor the younger. So I did that in Australia. 4 of us were in the high school there. So my uncle invited me for Shabbos Friday night dinner, because he invited also the shlichim from the Sochnut to the other high school in town, Yavne. So it's like the modern Orthodox high school, and they had shlichim, they had emissaries from, I think it's from the Sochnut, but they came from Eretz Yisrael, and their mission was to recruit people to move to Israel. That's their mission, to recruit for Aliyah. So, and my uncle invited me to meet them. We're shluchim at the high school, the Chabad high school. They're shluchim at the Orthodox high school. Share, talk, whatever. Fabring. So I had a nice conversation with one of the boys, and tells me, and he asks me, It took me a second to realize what he was asking me. He asks me, so hold on a second, what's your mission? Is your mission to get them to move to New York? I was like, what? Why would my mission be to make them move to New York? And then I realized, because his mission is to make them
Come to Israel.
move to Eretz Yisrael. I was sent from New York, Chabad headquarters, so he assumed my mission was to bring them to New York. And then it dawned on me, hold on a second, you're trying to get Aliyah to a geographic location, Eretz Yisrael. We're trying to make migration to a spiritual place called Eretz Yisrael. Right? A non-kosher restaurant in Melbourne, exchange that for a non-kosher restaurant in Tel Aviv. Doesn't mean much to me. Right? But if they're going to go to Yerushalayim, they're going to go from a place of distance from what Yerushalayim represents and come closer to what Yerushalayim represents. Now we're talking something. I'm not trying to bring them to New York. I'm trying to bring them closer up here.
Closer to Yiddishkeit.
Closer to Yiddishkeit, right? So it's not a geographic location of Yerushalayim, but the metaphysical, spiritual way of living known as Yerushalayim. And that's kind of what the Gemara is saying here, that Yeroboam leaving Yerushalayim isn't just geographically left Yerushalayim, but he left P'kiyasa, he left the destiny of Yerushalayim, he left what Yerushalayim represents. And that was the big mistake, the beginning of the down. So the verse continues. He left Yerushalayim, he left the destiny of Yerushalayim, he left the way of living,
Spirit of Yerushalayim.
the spirit of Yerushalayim, that's a good word. He left what it means to live with Yerushalayim, with proper fear of heaven. He left that way of thinking. And he met Achia Shiloni, the prophet that we've been talking about. But derech on the way. For who and he, Achia Shiloni, this is still a verse speaking. This is the verse in Kings 1, chapter 11. V'hu miskasa, and he, Achia Shiloni, the prophet, was covered b'salma chadasha, in a new garment. V'shneim levadam b'sada, and the two are standing alone in the field. And this is where they have the conversation. So let's analyze this. He's wearing a new garment and he's two in the field. I think I mentioned this before. Like, who cares that he's wearing a new garment? Like, why do we care? And if he's wearing an old garment, look, what's the difference? Why is it an important detail? So it says the Gemara, what does this mean that they're in a new garment? So two interpretations that are completely opposite. And I think in light of what we said, we can actually understand them as both. So first interpretation, Rav Nachman said, Kesalma Chadasha, the two of them were like a new garment. Ma'asim l'chadasha, just like a new garment. Ein bashum doifi, has no blemish, nothing torn. They're perfect. It's a new garment. After Yerasa shel Yeroboam, so too the Torah study of Yeroboam, l'haya bashum doifi, lacked for nothing, had no blemish. His Torah study was perfect. So he was just like a new garment. High praise. One interpretation. Davar Acher, another interpretation, exact opposite. Salma Chadasha, he was like a new garment, meaning Shechitzu Dvarim, Shaleishama Oizen Ma'olam. He came up with new ideas that had never been heard in the world. Okay, so either, Rashi is silent on this. No, but he says in the positive sense that he was so innovative in his Torah study that he's able to come up with new ideas that nobody else thought of. You could read it that way, or you could read it in the actual reverse, that he completely revolutionized Torah. Like, what is this? You're bringing new ideas into Torah? Meaning to say he veered from the straight path. Either way, what's clear is, let's just say we go with Rashi, that both of these things are positive. He had perfect knowledge of Torah, plus he had the innovation to come up with deep insight that nobody else ever thought of. Let's just go it that way. And yet, all that was meaningless. And he still went down the wrong way. Why? Because he left the spirit of Yerushalayim. This is a theme we've talked about before. A person studies Torah, but lacks the fear of heaven, lacks the acknowledgement of who the author of Torah is, then it doesn't matter with all the knowledge in the world. All the knowledge in the world can end up in the wrong place. The knowledge in and of itself is not valuable. What's valuable is that it's God's knowledge. If that's the way a person learns it, with Yerushalayim, with the spirit of Yerushalayim, with proper fear of heaven, then he learns one line of Torah, learns 10 lines of Torah, or knows the whole Torah. Now he's in the right way. But if a person lacks that, a person left the spirit of Yerushalayim, like it says here, he lives the fear of heaven. So he learns Torah, and he knows Torah just on an intellectual sense, then it's not guaranteed that he won't end up like Yeroboam, who's worshipping idols, for his own gain. As we talked about in the past, his pride led him to build idol worship.
Exactly.
Right? It's pride versus fear of heaven. Fear of heaven is the opposite of pride. It's humility.
If the saying is to give up to Yerushalayim, doesn't mean to give up on the studies?
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily mean you give up the studies. It means you lack the fear of heaven. In other words, his pursuit of Torah study stopped being for the fear of heaven, which is the proper way to study Torah, and became a manner in which he studies himself for his own personal gain. Like the famous Gemara, and the way Chassidus interprets it, the Gemara in Yuma, which says that someone who studies Torah Zachu, if he merits, then Torah becomes a potion of life. If he doesn't merit, Torah becomes a potion of death. How could Torah become a potion of death? God forbid. So explains Chassidus, the word Zachu, which means merit, also means Zach, which means refined. So if someone's refined, Zach, Zikui,
Are also pure.
or pure, yeah, like Shemen Zai Zach,
Exactly.
like pure olive oil. So a person studies Torah as in a refined, pure way, where he's studying Torah and understanding this is God's Torah, then all the knowledge he has is a potion of life. But if he lacks that refinement, and he studies Torah for the pursuit of his own gain, and the Torah itself feeds into his pride and feeds into his detriment. And that's what seems to happen here with Yeroboam. When he leaves Yerushalayim, he leaves the way of thinking of fear of heaven and goes to pride, then all Torah study, even if he keeps it all, is not good enough. Okay. It's also connected to the other famous Gemara, which is quotes in Yerushalmi, which describes why the Torah, one of the reasons. There's many different midrashim and Gemaras which give different reasons for why the first base of the Midrash was destroyed, and one of the reasons in Yerushalmi is Ashalai Baruch Hu B'Torah Tchila. They studied Torah, but they didn't make the blessing before they studied Torah. What's the big deal with making the blessing? It's making the blessing the acknowledgement of who gave the Torah. Remembering this is God's Torah. Studying Torah and the destiny and the spirit of Yerushalayim of proper fear of heaven.
It's interesting to note the same Rav Nachman is the one who said that it was Yasser Ruach drove him from the world. Also, there's the same Rav Nachman here who says that his Torah was complete.
Yep.
It's the same.
Yeah.
You can also say
Further bolsters what we're saying here.
Yeah, also say such an innovative mind that's all the more reason you have to be on guard. Someone's a simple person doesn't have.
As I said, you can read this Gemara that he came up with new things either as a plus, that he innovated, or in a negative, and then he went way off the rails, introducing new stuff.
Both are true.
And they're both connected.
Initially, he was innovative in Torah, but then eventually, he was out of control.
Both are connected.
Beyond the bounds. So
Yeah,
missing
The fear is actually the fear of disappointing Hashem.
that's correct. So a person studies Torah with
I'm afraid
that's
that he's going to hit me. Or
that's one level. There's different levels of fear.
That's
There's very different levels of fear. There's one level of fear. In time we talked about.
Onish, yeah.
We're going to get into these things. There's a level of punishment. There's one level. There's awe and reverence.
Yeah,
Like for
reverence.
example, someone who, if say, I don't know, our current politicians aren't worthy of this, but say a politician of old that we actually respected who walked into the room, or I don't know, some great leader walked into the room.
Michael Cherner.
So you wouldn't say anything silly. Why? Because you're afraid he's going to hit you. But there's a certain reverence. You don't want to say something that's silly in the presence of something like that. So when you think of God in that sense, that's one level of reverence. There's different levels of fear. And one level is indeed, it's a fear that comes in an extension from love, where a person loves Hashem so much that he's a fear of disappointing. So there's all kinds of levels.
Like a parent, for example.
There's different levels, yeah.
Like a parent, you respect your parents, also you kind of reverence. You don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah. That's a fear that Tanya describes as an extension of love.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's
like past measures.
yeah, it's the fear of losing the love, losing the connection that you have.
You
don't let them down.
Too
Yeah.
much for you. How could you have the chutzpah not to reciprocate?
So there's all kinds of levels, but any of them would be any level would be a good starting point for
Also,
this.
yira also means to see.
So it's saying, it's said
Someone
before,
really
mentioned before.
sees the presence of Hashem.
So I mentioned before, if you have a proper vision of Hashem, then there's also proper fear.
Of Hashem, your mind's eye.
Yeah. Okay. Since we're talking about puns, we say that yira, which means two things, both fear and vision. The person has proper fear. The person has a proper vision of Hashem, has a proper fear and awe of Hashem. Same thing's true of the other half of the word, which is shalom. I translated the word shalom as complete. That Yerushalayim stands for complete fear, but it's also shalom as in peace. What's the connection? If a person has awe and reverence for Hashem, then he can truly be peaceful with others. When I run my life based on my interest and my ego, so one day or another, inevitably, my agenda is going to collide with your agenda, and we're going to miss peace. But if I'm operating in the fear of heaven, and you're operating in the fear of heaven, then we're sharing an agenda. We shouldn't collide. Then there will be peace. So Yira Shalom, complete fear, also leads to Shalom with a Vav, as in Shalom, as in peace.
Also, Shalom, the person himself between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Rais.
Also,
He has to be in control, but also the word Shalom is also, in the change letter, it becomes Mashal. So someone can rule over his Yetzer, then he has real peace. With
internal peace, where he feels like his life has one direction as opposed to being pulled in 1,000 places, which is again Shalom, completion, wholesomeness.
It's Shalom and Mashal. He controls
nice.
himself.
Yerushalayim contains both those words.
That's what we're talking about. As we're talking about, and we're saying Yeroboam left
Yeah.
the destiny of Yerushalayim, left that way of thinking, and therefore, notwithstanding all the Torah study, he still went down the wrong path. As we'll learn here.
Yeah.
Okay, so the verse described, he left Jerusalem, we talked about that, and he met Achia Shalani wearing a new clothing, we talked about that, their Torah study was so amazing, it was like perfect and new, or that they were able to innovate. Now the verse continues, V'shneim levadim b'sada, and the two of them are alone in the field. And what if they're not in the field? What if they're on the path?
By alone,
What's this? What's the importance of this description? So it says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav. Two interpretations, very similar. Shekol Talmidei Chachamim, they were so elite and so advanced in their Torah study that all scholars, Doimin Lifneim, are compared to them Ka'aseve Hasada, like grass of the field. That's how superior their Torah study was. Their Torah study, the Torah study of all other scholars, were compared to them like grass in the fields. V'ikadamri, and others say, Shekol Talmid Torah Mugulun Lahem, that all the secrets or the reasons of Torah were revealed to them Kesada, like a field which is open. A field is in the open, uncovered. So the secrets are revealed, or all the scholars are like grass. So just think about this for a second. When you say that all the scholars are like grass, what does that mean? In whose eyes? From whose perspective are they like grass? So you might think, or at least in the simple readings, from the objective standard. The objective standard of Torah scholarship, if we're going to compare their scholarship to everybody else's, everybody was like grass and they were elite. So they stood alone in the field. Or maybe it means, in their eyes, they looked at everybody else as, they're only grass. We're much better. So not necessarily is it positive.
Or it could have led to that, but maybe initially that was true.
Or it could have led to that.
And then eventually...
In other words, objectively, it is true that they were much more superior, which it led to them looking down at everybody else. Again, getting back to that same point, leading to the arrogance being the problem.
The giants call us grasshoppers.
Sorry?
Like the giants call us grasshoppers.
Yeah. Or another thing, and then the other thing, which is that all the reasons of Torah are revealed to them. Where's the problem here? The problem is that when they think that when all the reasons are available to them, the person who studies with humility, the more they study, the more they know how much more there is to know. And if God is infinite, so is Torah infinite. And they come to the point where we know everything, we're done. So on the one hand, you could read it, and on the simple level, it is being read as a praise of their knowledge in Torah study. But at the same time, it could be read or lead to having left Yerushalayim, having left the spirit of fear of heaven, it leads to an arrogance even within their Torah study.
But Achia Shalani kept it. So they both were there.
Achia Shalani probably made a mistake.
He made a mistake, but he kept his Torah knowledge.
Yeah. I don't know that Yeroboam lost his Torah knowledge, but he didn't.
No, but he made it with the Averas.
Yeah.
Still remained.
Achia Shalani remained loyal to Hashem. That's true, with one exception of making a mistake of signing on to
He made a
Yeroboam.
mistake, but that was his house. But this Yeroboam was the amazing.
Yeah.
But he didn't have any political power, right?
Who?
Right.
No, he was a prophet. He was like a clergy. No, it's like the other branch of government of those days, the clerical branch of government.
Or sometimes the Navi is more just like social critic. That's what media is supposed to be, as opposed to what it is today.
And today in social sciences, you might call it that.
Yeah, that was the job of the prophet, because the priests took care of the temple, and the kings, Sanhedrin, the laws. But the prophets were without any portfolio. They were free to criticize anyone because
they're not beholden to anybody.
Exactly.
Okay, let's read one more verse. Okay, the Gemara quotes a verse in Micha, which reads, Lachain, and therefore, Titni Shiluchim, you will give parting gifts, Al Moirashas Gas, in response to having inherited the city of Gas, or Gath. Bate Achziv, you'll get houses of deception, La'achzav Lamalchi Yehuda, from Achzav, the kingdom of Israel. What does this mean? Cryptic verse. Let's explain the Gemara. Amar Chanin Bar Papa. Rabbi Chanin Bar Papa says, and this is why it's coming up here, because the Gemara is interpreting this verse as a description of God speaking while the Jews are crowning Jeroboam as king. Namely, Yatza Baskava Amra. At the time when the Jews were crowning Jeroboam as king, a heavenly voice came out and announced, V'amralan, and told them, the Jewish people, Misha Harakas HaPlishti, the one who killed the Pelishtim, referring to King David. And as a result of that, V'hoirish Eschem Gas, and as a result of that, you inherited the city of Gath, the big city of the Pelishtim, as a result of David's great military capacities. So you're gonna give thanks by that. Titnu Shiluchim Labanov, you're gonna give parting gifts to his children, meaning to say you're gonna leave him. So King David dies. He did all this wonderful stuff for you, got rid of the Pelishtim. You have the great city of Gath, and now that's it. Goodbye, Charlie. He dies. You're abandoning him. You're giving his children parting gifts, and instead, what you're going to get is, as a result, as punishment, as it were, consequence. But the Yisrael, you're going to go with this northern kingdom called the kingdom of Israel. You'll end up getting a deceptive house, and that they're going to lead you down a path of idol worship, which is deceptive, and that you're treating it like a god, when obviously it is not.
The custom is a falsehood.
Falsehood, deception.
More than because it's like shikra kaza, but it's totally untrue.
Yeah. So the Gemara kind of switches from Yeroboam's mistake, in his arrogance, even notwithstanding his Torah study, but having left Jerusalem, having left the fear of heaven, he went arrogant. Now the Gemara is switching gears to talking about the people and the mistake they made. And here we could see the mistake the beginning already is being ungrateful. Not being grateful to the house of David that did so much for them, and then abandoning them because they don't like what the next thing is, or whatever the reasons are. And the Gemara from there is going to get into the issue of being ungrateful and the importance of remembering where things come from and offering proper thanks, beginning with Hashem himself. That, God willing, tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.
Where's the Tel Zafit National Park?
Sorry?
Tel Zafit National Park in Israel.
No idea.
That's where the city of Gath is.
Oh, that's where it used to be, I guess.
Well, Gath should be like near Gaza, because of the land of the Pelishtim.
It's Tel Zafit National Park.
Go visit and let us know. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
Interesting.